Hi everyone, my name is Karen, this is my channel RatherBeReading, and today I'm bringing to you a discussion about changing your rating for books. So this is a discussion video which I've never done before on my channel, but this is something I've wanted to kind of talk about like generally for a while, and that is changing your ratings for books. When you've read a book previously and you've given a certain rating and then you reread it for whatever reason, and then you decide to change your rating and whether we should change our ratings. So I haven't written down any notes for this or whatever, I'm just kind of doing this off the cuff, so hopefully this is a coherent video. So I previously am someone who took the position of you shouldn't ever change your rating for a book. I think I've probably stated that on this channel. As time has gone on, I've realized that I don't really believe in that stance anymore. But there's circumstances where I think it's appropriate to change your rating and circumstances where I don't think it's appropriate to change your rating, which we're kind of going to get into. So I don't think, so the circumstances I don't generally like when someone changes their rating is when you have read, say, a series of books and you've read the first book and you've given it like, say, 3 stars. And then you've read the next book and that book was a much improvement over the first book, so you've given the second book a higher rating and you might continue to give the books higher ratings or whatever, and you complete the series, great. Then when it comes back and you decide to reread the series and you reread that first book and you decide to change your rating based on the context of the whole series or what you've read later on, because you know that these things tie into things later on, and so you decide to give the book an overall higher rating. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think the rating for a first book has to be based on the first book. I don't think that you can rate a book based on what's going to come later, because I think, what if you only read that first book? What if you didn't decide to continue on with the series because of the issues in that book? So an example I kind of have of this, which I should have pulled down but I didn't, but I'll put pictures in, is the first book in the Burn for Burn trilogy. I'm not going to get into any spoilers, but there was one particular aspect of the story that I found to be incredibly underdeveloped when I read that first book. And my rating reflected that. Then when I read the second book, I realized that there was a specific reason for that like ties into like a big kind of like shocking moment in the story. And so it had been done purposely in that first book to allow for that moment in the second book, which is great. And my rating for the second book was higher because of that. Do I think that if I went and reread it, I would enjoy that first book more? Yes. Do I think that I should change my rating? No, because that book still had those issues. If I had chosen only to read that book, I still think that that part of the story is underdeveloped in that first book. Just because it's done for a specific reason later on doesn't mean, and I should have given a disclaimer, although I hate disclaimers, but like, I understand people having a different opinion. I understand if you think, no, you need to take things as a whole and it makes, you know, and I agree that like it shows like how clever an author can be and that can kind of affect your enjoyment of it. But I just think that the rating for a book needs to be on that book and its merits as a book on its own, not because of its place within an arc, if that makes sense. And so you have to rate it based on, and yes, the second book is going to kind of be influenced by the first book, but that's because that exists together, whereas the first book exists as the first book. There's no second book, like, even if there is. Do you kind of get what I'm saying? I feel like I've made this more confusing than it needed to be. I should have written notes, but I didn't. So that's kind of the circumstances where I don't necessarily think that a rating should change. Where I think that it is something where we should be able to change our ratings is when you read a book at a different time in your life, and so your feelings on that book change. Because obviously I think we all have books that we read as a younger person that then we may reread when we're older and realize that actually that book has a lot more problematic content in it or something like that than what you were aware of when you're younger. But again, there's kind of circumstances where I kind of think it's more appropriate than others. If it's just based purely off you reading it and you think, well, wait, no, actually this book has a lot of problems that I didn't pick up on because I just wasn't capable of picking up on them at that time, then yes, I feel like you can change your ratings, or maybe you're just at a different place in your life and so the themes speak to you more when you're older and so you rate it higher than what you did. I'm fine with all of that. I think it can get a little bit dicey when you're rereading a book from your childhood and you decide to give it, I mean, obviously this is harder because typically, obviously, we won't have rated those books, but I think that there is definitely a certain amount of leeway that has to be given to a book that is written for a child. I think you have to somewhat look at it from a child's level. I don't think that you can hold a book that's written for a 6-year-old to the standard of a book that's written for an adult. Like reading, say, a children's mystery and saying, well, this is shit because I could guess who the person was straight away. You can because you're an adult, but you need to look at it through the eyes of a child and think, could a child easily figure that out? And so I think sometimes when you're rereading a book and you go, oh, I'm getting low power, oh no, apologies, I got a low power warning and I accidentally completely knocked my camera over when I tried to get it off the screen. So I've kind of lost my train of thought. So yeah, I just think that if you have rated a book and you think, I gave this 5 stars when I read this when I was, 12, and now as an adult I'm giving it 2 stars just based purely off the fact that I don't particularly enjoy middle grade anymore because I'm an adult. I don't think that's necessarily fair. I think you need to look at it as a book like for that audience. Is it a good book for what it's supposed to be in terms of rereading? And somewhat if you're just reading it new, I think that that's something you need to take into consideration. But I think in particular when rereading and deciding to change a rating, that there's certain things that you need to consider. I feel like this video is making less and less sense as it goes on, and I really should have written down notes. So yeah, I would love your guys' opinion on if you think it's that you should be able to change your ratings for a book, or you think that you shouldn't change your rating, or if like me, you're starting to kind of think that there's circumstances where it's appropriate to change ratings and it's not. And like I said, I don't have any problem with anyone else changing ratings whenever they want. You do you, I'll do me, we cool. But I say I do sometimes and like I say, I don't have any issue with, I'm not going to unsubscribe to someone because of it or anything like that. But I have watched people's videos in the past where they're rereading a book and they've said something specifically like what I was saying with the series, like, this has real issues with character development in this book, so I gave it 3 stars when I read it, but I love this character now because I've read like 4 more books from them, so now I'm giving it 5 stars. And I'm just like, okay, but that book still has those problems. Just because you've read further on doesn't mean that that book doesn't have that problem. Does that make sense? I hope so. Wow, for my first discussion video, this was kind of a mess. Will I end up posting this? I guess you guys will know because you'll either be seeing it or you won't. Like I say, I would love to chat with you guys in the comments down below about your opinions on this, when you like to change ratings, or if you don't change ratings, or kind of how you feel about that generally. I would love to chat down below. Please like this video if you liked it. Please subscribe if you want to see more from me, and potentially more discussion videos in the future. If you have any discussion videos or like topics that you would like me to discuss, feel free to suggest them down below. I have never had any intention to be, oh, I need to do like discussion videos. I've posted this because this is a specific thing that I've been thinking about over the past few months. It's like something that I kind of wanted to talk about, and so I've made a video because of that. But if there is something that you think that I should be discussing, then feel free to suggest it and I will maybe film a video about it. But yeah, please like, please subscribe. But that is all I have for this video today. Bye guys.